Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of this series called Stand Up and Out on the Forgotten Generation podcast with your host Troy. This series is about amplifying the lost voices of young people that are misrepresented in SEND and invisible disabilities, sharing lived experiences to stand up and out in the world on their journeys. And today's guest on this episode is Rosanna. Would you like to introduce yourself? Who you are? And what is one word that describes you and your disability to the listeners?
So hi, I'm Rosanna and I'm 17 years old. If I had to describe myself in one word, I think it would be passionate. I'm a national youth advocate working with a range of organisations and charities, mainly focused on projects and campaigns around SEND, education and social care. I also live with several disabilities, including Early syndrome, autism, ADHD and type 1 diabetes, which shape the way I see the world and fuel my passion for making it more inclusive. I also have one adorable brother, Toby, who is 15 and has Down syndrome. I've done loads of work over the last few years, from running campaigns and delivering training to presenting at conferences and contributing research on issues that affect young people like pornography, technology, exams, the state of the current SEND system and attendance. When I'm not doing all that, you'll probably find me reading a book, walking in the countryside, making resin models, or racing around in an electric go-kart.
Wow, love that intro. And you absolutely are an inspiration. You do incredible things. And so good to have you on Stand Up and Out series.
Thank you.
And so the first question is, what is your journey as a neurodiverse young person?
Well, I was first diagnosed with autism when I was 11 years old. And looking back, I think I always kind of knew I was a bit different from my peers, and it was definitely the subject of multiple conversations between my mother and I. When I was younger, the other kids were doing pretend play, but I'd be the ones setting up the dollhouse or lining up all the cards in the tray that made sense to me, but I never played with them in the traditional sense. I like the structure and the order and bossing them around in my own head, but the imaginative part of physically actually moving the objects never really clicked for me. In primary school, and honestly even now, I found it hard to form connections and maintain stable friendships with people my own age. Social stuff just doesn't really come that naturally to me, and that can sometimes feel a bit isolating or just even lonely. Things really changed when I got to secondary school. Like what happens with most neurodivergent children, it was like all my neurodivergent traits just suddenly became louder. So my tolerance for smells, noise, and even just being around other people just decreased massively. I often felt overwhelmed, alone, or even unsure of what I was doing or how I was going to cope. But then when I was 15, I was also diagnosed with combined ADHD, and that was kind of like another light bulb moment. It helped me understand why I'd leave books or even shoes in the fridge, forget a task 2 seconds after being told, or why my brain plays music on a loop. And yes, that is annoying when I have the same song in my head for just 12 hours straight. It helped me further understand the parts of me that didn't quite fit in, the impulsiveness, the constant mental noise, and the struggle to focus even when I really wanted to. I won't say my journey has necessarily been easy or hard, but it's definitely just been mine. There's been some challenges, definitely, but also moments of understanding and growth and happiness. What's made the biggest difference is the support I've had from my school, friends and family. They've helped me understand myself better, given me space to be who I am, and reminded me that being neurodiverse isn't something to hide, it's something that makes me positively unique. It shaped how I see the world, how I advocate for others, and how I found strength in being different, because if we're all the same, then the world would just be so boring.
Absolutely, so well said. Love your journey. You come a long way as a neurodiverse young person. You face, those highs and lows as well. And I think it's so empowering. And has there been someone who inspired you to make that difference in your community as a neurodiverse young person?
I've definitely had several people in my life who have inspired me to advocate for others. However, one person that truly inspired me and that really sticks out was a teacher at my school, actually. She supported me through some of my hardest moments and even now continues to be a huge source of wisdom, encouragement. Let's be honest, she's quite entertaining. She's always encouraged me to be intrinsically motivated, which means doing good for others, not because of money, recognition or praise, but simply because it's the right thing to do, and also to look for the best in people. She's given a lot of time and effort to me, and it's something I'll be eternally thankful for. The unwavering support she's given me when I needed it most has definitely made me want to give back to others in the same way that she did to me. That kindness and belief in me was definitely influential. Since then, I've joined various participation groups, run workshops for young people, and now advocate for thousands of children and young people every day, giving back to you guys what someone once gave to me. If she and various others hadn't shown me that compassion or pushed me out to help others, I honestly don't think I would be doing any of this now. I've also been lucky to have amazing friends around me. They're always encouraging me to try new things, step out my comfort zone, and support others in whatever way I can. Their belief in me has helped me to believe in myself, and that's made all the difference.
Wow. I'm just lost for words of what you just said. Like, it's just so, so inspiring how that teacher has helped you and inspired you to do what you're doing today. Like, you're doing incredible things. And I've actually seen you do incredible things locally, but also nationally as well. Like, because you really are championing young people's voices with Send, and you should be so proud of yourself in that.
Thank you.
And so has there been times in your and experiences that you felt and personal and barriers like in your journey, like and what you faced?
I think one of the biggest issues for me is just simply being recognised and accepted in a world that isn't necessarily built for people like you or me, people who are neurodiverse. I don't fit the stereotypical image of someone who struggles with communication, socialisation, sensory overload, and all the rest of it. I've actually found it really difficult to get people to listen to me and actually believe what I'm trying to tell them. And even now, I face backlash from peers, teachers, and others around me who either don't believe I'm neurodiverse or worse, don't believe neurodiversity is even real. For me, one of the most frustrating reasons behind this disbelief is the way that neurodiversity is portrayed in the media and on social media platforms. There is just so much misinformation, from the put a finger down if self-diagnosis trends to bizarre conspiracy theories like Tylenol causes autism. And it seriously creates this culture of doubt and stigma. Also quite a lot of backlash around private diagnosis, as if needing support should be something you have to publicly prove. It's exhausting having to constantly justify your experiences just to be taken seriously. Another major barrier for me has been education, and while I'm incredibly lucky to be in a fantastic school with loads of support, I still find it really difficult to manage in a school environment. Every day feels like an uphill battle just to walk through the gates. I mean, to start with, who thought having a loud bell to signal lesson changes was a sensory-friendly idea? The structure, the noise, the constant social interaction, it can be really overwhelming, even on a good day. However, while these barriers and experiences have made it harder for me to succeed, they've also shaped the way I advocate and support others. They've taught me empathy, helped me realise the cracks in the system that desperately need fixing, and showed me how to stand beside others who are facing similar challenges. If the world isn't suitable for everyone, then I want to be part of changing it, and I believe that my lived experience is not just, valid, but vital in making sure our voices are heard and respected.
Yes, and that is so, so true. Like, and your lived experience is so crucial and so important to empower change. And you also touched on the education environment because, like, and that can be a barrier too. My experience in that, in the education setting environment was quite hard, quite challenging because I think a lot of and staff didn't understand my needs. I kind of had like a support staff as part of communication resource and then like especially in college. And I feel like I struggled.
Yeah, it's a very common theme with children with neurodiversity, in that the schools just don't know how to support the child, and there's not enough knowledge and training and stuff out there to really help that.
And exactly. And especially with the bells as well that you touched on, how like noise and just so much when it comes on, it's like, oh.
Honestly,
Yeah.
who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, because it's not a good idea, is it? It's not really for those, like young people who have sensory issues in a way with their ears. And your personal and barriers is so, so important. And just thanks to you for sharing that in your journey. And so that brings me to what are the key issues young people with special educational needs and disabilities are facing right now and why?
Well, I kind of just touched upon this, but I think that one of the biggest issues young people with SEND are facing right now is accessing education and work. As I've just said, I personally struggle to access the traditional education system, even though I'm quite academically successful and receive a lot of support from my school. I'm very aware that I'm extremely fortunate in that, and there are thousands of children and young people who aren't so lucky. One of the most pressing problems in a neurodiverse community is emotional-based school avoidance. This isn't just about being lazy or not wanting to go to school, it's about trauma. The experiences some young people have in school environments are so overwhelming and distressing that they physically and emotionally just can't attend. And instead of recognising that, the government is tightening attendance rules, which only adds pressure and fear. Schools themselves are under huge strain. They're drastically underfunded, services are stretched thin, and teachers are overwhelmed. SEND support is lacking massively, and the funding schools receive for each child with SEND hasn't increased in over a decade. With inflation, that money does not nearly go as far as it used to, and it's simply not enough to meet the needs of students. I don't think the answer is just to scrap the system entirely, which is what some people suggest. I think if we invest properly, gave staff more training, injected real funding into schools, and listened to young people, a lot of these issues would just start to sort themselves out. If a school has the money, it can invest in proper support, create inclusive environments, and actually meet the needs of its SEND students.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree. Like, and better support, money, but like, and just accessibility now. Because I think a lot of children, like, and people with SEND are struggling in the education system. That involves and support the staff to help them. But it feels like it's such a mess that needs to be solved.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you're actually in that school environment, not many, some children with SEND struggle to advocate for themselves effectively because the staff quite a lot of time in a big massive mainstream school where there's like 2,000 plus kids or whatever, it's really difficult for staff to have the time to sit with like a child that needs support, sit and listen to what they need and get the support in place. And it's so difficult for children to be able to speak out and go, look, I need help with this. And we might not necessarily know what support we need, we just know we need support. So I think, quite honestly, there needs to be some more understanding around what support is out there and thinking about cheap, easy to implement methods to support these children better.
Look at their plan of action. Look at maybe like an education and healthcare plan. Look at what it is and how we can best support them. If you were the Prime Minister or an MP, what would you do and say to them in better supporting our voice?
Well, if I were Prime Minister or an MP, the first thing I would do is make sure that children and young people, especially those with SEND, are generally heard in every decision that affects their lives. It's not just about creating systems, laws, or programs for us without actually involving us. If you're designing something that's meant to young people, how can you possibly know whether it's suitable, accessible, or even remotely useful without asking the very people it's meant to help? I'd also push youth-led advisory panels in every local authority, make it law to consult with children on every relevant piece of legislation, and ensure that lived experience is taken seriously and valued. I'd say to Parliament, stop assuming, start listening, because when you give young people the space to speak and the respect to be heard, you don't just build better policy, you build a better future.
Wow, an absolutely incredible pitch as Prime Minister. You would have my vote in a second, honestly. And what you just said is absolutely so crucial. I love how you said about participation groups, make it more active in those local authorities, but also just on your vision and where you want to see a country go, but also specifically for those young people with disabilities is amazing. Yes, you're definitely going to be Prime Minister by the end of this year, believe me.
We'll see about that.
And so, what is your one piece of advice to a young person wanting to stand up and out, but don't know how to?
Well, to any young people listening to this, I would say just don't underestimate the power of your voice. Getting involved, whether through local youth groups, attending workshops, or applying to join panels or groups, it's just a chance to speak up about what really matters to you. You don't need to have all the answers, just your own experiences and ideas. In doing this, you can help to shape change, share your opinions, and be part of something bigger. Your voice counts and it deserves to be heard.
What an amazing advice. I propose you young people listening to this episode, I hope they take away on what you said on your advice because it was so empowering and so inspirational. And you are absolutely incredible. So thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Rosanna, for coming on today's episode of Stand Up and Out. Just amazing conversation about journey that you're on. It's really so inspiring.
Thank you.
Please support the podcast by subscribing and rating the podcast. I'd love to hear what you like and what could be better for future episodes. If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram and iwill.troy, and also on X, iwill_Troy. Tune in to next week's episode.